Hi, McGowan artists. Welcome back to another fun week of art. This week we're going to talk about stained glass windows, and those are the beautiful bright color windows that that light comes through and you can see them. They're usually, some people have them in their homes, or but usually you might see them like in a cathedral or a museum. Or the artist Frank Lloyd Wright, he's an architect and artist. He designed lots of stained glass windows, and he had more of a nature influence, like plants in his. Also, the movie Beauty and the Beast is one that I always think of because there's a beautiful stained glass window in that movie with the rose inside of it. And they've got those in Disney World as well. This one I made obviously isn't a window, but I made it out of paper with watercolors. And I tried to capture the thought of this beautiful artwork of stained glass. So I wanted to use bright colors. Stained glass is often held together with has lead in the glass, but with iron or metal framed pieces that hold the glass in place, and then the light shines through during the day and the beautiful colors of the glass show through. Sometimes they have symbols in them. Like I mentioned earlier, the one on Beauty and the Beast has a rose. Sometimes they might have like a crown, maybe if it's in a palace, or a heart, or like I mentioned earlier, Frank Lloyd Wright in his homes like to have pictures of types of plants resembled, flowers, or even sometimes leaves in his with more natural colors. So this is just an idea, and I can't wait to see what you decide to do. So I'm going to show you one way to do this. With this one, I went ahead and I will show you in a minute how to cut the top to make it look a little bit ornate or decorative, more unique. But then on the inside, sometimes they're symmetrical, which means they're the same on both sides, but sometimes they aren't. And for this project, you can decide as the artist what you want to do. I went ahead, like I said, and I drew a crown. I drew it all out with a pencil first, and then I went over it with a black pastel because it has oil in it, and I'm going to use paint, so I wanted to make sure it's something that wouldn't run with my paint. Oil and water resist. You can use a black crayon, or you could paint all of it, wait for it to dry, and then go over all your pencil lines with black paint. So it's really up to you. I'm just going to show you one way, and then you can show me what you decide to do. Also, if you don't have paint, you can substitute it by coloring in with crayons or markers to get the idea, but try to make it colorful. Okay, so that was my finished one. I'm going to start in any size of paper that you want. This is just a regular piece of paper that I typically use for art. And I want the top of it, though, the beginning of it, to have a design that's equal on both sides, so that part's symmetrical. So I'm going to fold it in half long ways. Call that, remember, hot dog bun ways. It's long and thin like a hot dog. And keeping in mind where my outside piece is, which is right there, the part that's opened up, the opened piece, the folded piece. I keep my hand on the folded piece, and I want to cut along the very top to make some type of pattern for my window. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I'm going to plan that out. Remembering that on the folded part, I'm going to start, and I'm going to make this one a little bit more unusual. Make a kind of curved line coming outwards, and then I'm going to simply cut on it. You could simply make a diagonal line. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's really whatever you want to do, or an arc, whatever the top of your window you want it to look like. So when I open it up, I've got more of a curved edge on this one as compared to this one where I just did more. When I folded it, it's just a simple curve. It's up to you. Okay, so I'm going to lay this down. I'm going to do it backwards so that you're looking at it straight on. And I'm going to use my pencil to plan out my design. I do have some pastels, I guess, already on the table, so I've smeared it a little bit. That's okay. I'm going to paint over it. I'm going to start off, and for this one, I think I am going to just do a simple heart. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my design in the middle. I want you to think of one thing that you want it to be the focal point or the center of your window. So we mentioned maybe the flower, like Beauty and the Beast. I did a crown, whatever you want to do. I'm going to do a heart for this one. I'm going to make a nice pattern lined edge here to maybe create more of a frame design. So first I've got my symbol, then I have my lines for a frame. I'm going to make a fun pattern on those too, I think. Now it might be hard for you to see right now, but I am going to go over all of these with black in just a moment. You could use a Sharpie to do your black lines if you don't have a crayon or a pastel. A Sharpie is permanent. Just be sure you ask your mom and dad. I'm going to make sure that it doesn't go through your paper. But a Sharpie won't run when you add your paint. If you use a Crayola marker, it would run. So you'd have to make sure your paint's dry. Okay, so I've got now a design I made around the edge. I have my symbol in the middle. It doesn't have to be complicated. And then I'm going to make my lines coming out is where I'm going to make the different colors of pieces so it looks like glass. You can even break them up a little bit and make them be in different directions, going diagonal, going horizontal, going vertical, whatever you want to make it look kind of unique. So this one I'm making isn't very symmetrical, where the one I made earlier was a little bit more balanced. I did each side to match. Again, you're the artist, so you can decide what you want to do. All right, so I've got some basic lines. Now I'm going to use my pastels to go over my design. Now the thing about a pastel though, it does smear, as what happened when I had it on the table from earlier. So just be careful, try not to smear. Very carefully, I'm trying not to drag my hand on my paper. And you can turn your paper to work for you. When I don't want something to smear, I do tend to turn it around, so I'm trying not to touch it in too many spots or lean over it too much. So I'm just simply going over all my lines. So with this, without even really trying too hard, I've made a pattern. I've made kind of an organic and geometric shape. I'm making different directions of lines. I made a symmetrical shape when I cut it because that means it's the same on both sides. So there's a lot of art design going into this project. And then once we add the color to the black and the white, it's just going to pop and look so beautiful. Okay, I went a little fast. You'll have more time to go over it, but I don't want to take up all your time just watching me do this. Okay, so for the paint, I'm using plain watercolors like I've used before. They're going to look the best because watercolors are essentially translucent and you can see through it a little bit. They're not solid. I want it to look like sun coming through some colored glass. So that's what I'm going to use. So I've got my brush, I have my water. I'm going to swirl it around in my water, wipe it on the side, not tap it, and then I'm going to go for the colors. Now with watercolor, usually I would say start with the lighter colors, but I was just thinking of the heart, and the heart's in the middle, and I want my heart to be red. That's not a very light color, but I'm going to start with that one. If you have areas that are smaller than others, it's a good idea, I think, to very carefully sort of outline it with your brush. It helps keep it in the space of the lines. Sometimes when we color, we do that also. It helps us to stay in the lines and paint. Now, I do see some black flecks that are coming off of the pastels. That's okay. Depends on what you use. Crayons don't do that as much, but the pastels are a little darker. Remember, when we paint, we don't scrub back and forth. We try to go in one direction very lightly with the tip of our brush. And that's my center. Now, when you do this today, your challenge is to paint everything. I don't want any plain white pieces. I'd like you to try to make your stained glass be completely colorful. So I started with my red. I'm going to go through and add orange. And I'm just going to have fun alternating my colors and seeing what it turns out to be. Let's do a couple more. Now I am going to finish this and put it all together, but I think you get the idea. Looking at the one that I made earlier, you can see I didn't leave anything all plain white. I even thought about the edge of it and created a pattern there. So go ahead, design your stained glass window. Think of an image to put in the middle, like I've got a crown, but I've got a heart on this one. Make a framed border. Make some lines coming out from your shape in any type of direction. And then go over those with black and paint them in. If you don't have paint, you can use crayons or markers. And I can't wait to see what your beautiful stained glass window is going to look like. Have fun!